Good morning. Well, today I've done a few little things and I'm going to put some antlers on these reindeer. And I decided to use Sculpey for some of these projects for the antlers and for the sleigh because what I wanted to do was make these parts very strong. And so what I did was I got the um, armature that I like the richest and the best. I tried another kind here and it's okay, but I really like the richest. And good morning, Mark. Good morning, Cindy. And so I basically bent out two um, lengths of the armature and I surrounded them with Sculpey. And now what I have to do, and I have all my parts here, is I'm going to take them out to I have a little wood shop where I can sand them and assemble them. And what we want to do is create an authentic sled in Siberia. I don't want to do regular Santa sled. That's done and done and done and done. So what intrigues me, and if I can bring up a picture, let's see if I can bring up a picture. I don't know if I can get this big enough for you to see. But what intrigues me is this kind of environment with these authentic sleds from the Komi people, the Sami people, the people of northern, up above Siberia in the Arctic. And the northern lights are in the background. Of course, I can't sculpt the northern lights, but they use tents. I mean, there's been a lot of what they call cultural appropriation, where they have tourism up there now and dog sleds, which the dogs run after the reindeer. These are traditional reindeer herders. And it's just, they're having a real hard time with tourists not understanding this culture. But what I thought was so great was to see the design of that sled because it's so aerodynamic and so obviously it's the slats that go vertically aren't completely vertical. They're on a slight angle. So we're going to sand this all down. This is very strong, these parts. So ultimately, if we want to do reproductions, I would do these in resin, the sled. And so Cindy, I know you said, how am I going to do that sled? Well, clay just didn't really hold up. And even on armature, it gets really weak. And so I want to do it right. So these Sculpey pieces are around this armature that I shaped. And, I made sure that the runners were the same. And so what we'll do is sand them today. This stuff sands really well. If you're not familiar with Sculpey, this is Super Sculpey. Let me get the package so you can see it. I have it here. Okay, so you can bake it at 275 for 15 minutes, and it's Super Sculpey. I like to say, this is used by kids. It's non-toxic. It's used for jewelry making and everything, but it's also a really good um, addition to your knowledge of sculpture materials, and where I would never do these kinds of sculptures and Sculpey. I have tried large, in fact, I did turn in some large sculptures, larger desk top size in the past to some Franklin Mint assignments. I remember doing that. But what I didn't know at the time, yes, polymer clay, exactly. And oops, and it's non-toxic. Let me see if I can show you the consistency. I mean, it's very soft. And so here's where I was going with my other thought is if you create something solid, you've got to put something inside it like aluminum foil, and then you can bake it with aluminum foil or aluminum wire inside just fine. And you can add to it, bake it again, as long as you're under it or under 300 at 275 for 15 minutes. And here's some of this Super Sculpey. Super Sculpey is known for being a little harder, but boy, can you ever sand it and cut it? Let me see if I can show you. This is very, very malleable. I mean, to a fault at this stage until you bake it. So I would highly recommend you exploring different materials for sure. But I can tell you from my experience that when it comes to doing this kind of work, um, the modeling clay is absolutely the way to go. And when we finish this, I say we because I'm going to get my husband Tim to help me finish this. He likes to make models. He's not a sculptor, but he makes models. He's got all kinds of tools, and we'll sand this down really nicely. But when this is finished, I still want to have it in such a way that I know where I'm going to cut it, lay it down, and make a rubber mold on it and turn it into resin so I could reproduce it. So that's the other thing. Everything I do is made with reproduction in mind. Like you can make one of a kind and be done with it, but isn't it nice that you could make 10, limited edition of 10? You still have to finish them in my view, carefully by hand. Each one has to have special attention. So I put some ears on. I took that weird head thing off, and I thought, okay, let's look at a good design for reindeer antlers. And so I found that, if you can see that there, what happens is they grow and they have this velvet all over them, and then they fall off and they grow back again. So while they have the velvet on, the antlers are somewhat thick, and so that's a lot easier to pull off on our um, clay sculpture. Still, I'm going to embed. I got this slightly thinner aluminum wire. I think the Richardson is so much better. After trying this, this is not as pliable. It's a little thinner. I got a thinner gauge than what I had. I still wish I had gotten even thinner gauge. And, I always have time to order that and then replace whatever I do here. But for reasons of demonstration, I thought I would use this and just create two lengths real quickly. And then just match them up. Oh, it's much harder to cut. Wow. So I just got this. I can't believe it. All right, so there you go. And I will make two lengths. I think I'll go back online when I'm done this session and order some more Richardson wire because I love it by comparison. And it's still very strong, but so much easier to work with. So I'll cut these two. And then I'm going to probably have to have some tributaries, and I'll cut those little lengths. And then I'm going to use an adhesive. You can use super glue and then surround it with Sculpey and bake it, and it bakes just fine. So I have two lengths there. They're way longer than I need. But I took one head off because let me just explain. I'll have you guys think I'm crazy, right? I want to have two of the reindeer walking together, and this head turned slightly like that. And so they're not exactly, people go, oh, you molded a reindeer and just reproduced it. No, we're doing separate reindeer. And the new one, his legs are way too heavy. Even the old one is, because I need to thin those legs way down. But I'll wait till the very end to do that. So what I'm going to do is shape, I have too many reindeer here, shape this, and then I'll cut this and then just surround it in the Sculpey and bake it. And then I'll have decent strength to my antlers. And so I'll work on that for a few minutes. Do you have any questions or suggestions? Because this is where you get into things like, okay, now do you sculpt something, or do you work it in wood, or do you work it in metal, and how are you going to reproduce that? So there's all these questions you need to answer about where you're going with your piece. If you're just doing it for fun, there are probably more options, but I want it to be what I'm envisioning is the sleigh or sled. This is not a sleigh. This is a sled reindeer. Oh, and by the way, if it was at Santa's reindeer, I have learned that there would be all female reindeer because they're the only ones that have antlers at that time of year. Both the male and the female reindeer have antlers, but the female reindeer still have them in December, whereas the males have lost them by then. A little technicality. We want to be accurate though. Okay, so I'm going to just take my pieces of metal and let's see. It's not all that big. It's just not that big at all. So I'm going to clip that back again. There we go. It's not too bad, but it's a lot stronger or harder to work. You match it up. Match it up. This isn't quite right. What's great about the Super Sculpey, it's a little stronger than regular Sculpey, and you can paint it. It's non-toxic. You know, if somebody gets mad at you using the oven, say, look, it's like cornstarch or something. It's not toxic. Polymer clay, right. So Rudolph is a female, and as I've mentioned to Mark before, the red nose is actually it's relating to a true fact about reindeer, which is they have huge numbers of blood vessels in their nose, and their noses sometimes appear pinkish or red because what that does is they, in the incredibly bitter cold that they're perfectly adapted to, they warm their brain and their heart areas and keep it concentrated. And the powering of that is going on in their nose, which then does appear red. Who would have known? I've learned so much about reindeer by researching this little sculpture project. I've also learned something almost scary about them. They won't, if you try to hand them a carrot, they won't eat a carrot. But if they trample lemmings in a lemming stampede, which can, your dog has a red nose in winter. Good. That's so funny. You could make your dog pulling the sled. So have reindeer and then have your dog in front, right? But they will actually eat the lemmings' bodies. I've never heard of something like a deer being carnivorous at all, but apparently, and I read this, they do that. So, you know, who would know? So I took this head off, and I'm just going to take my metal and just kind of see where I want to put that, and I'll make a hole there that it would go into, and then I'll only put the Sculpey on and bake it as far as, and then I'll make the tributaries from there. So first I'll just kind of establish where do I want to put these. And I'm not sure I'm putting them in the right place. It actually goes in front, more in front of the ear. I can always move the ear back. I'm trying to see in relation to yeah, I put it too far back. So, hey, I'm talking and working at the same time, right? Okay, so no, but I'm glad because I had kind of written off Sculpey, and I'm glad to have sort of, no, it's got to go back like that, reacquainted myself with it because it really can serve purposes when you're trying to do sculpture that requires some creative, thin areas, and you still want to go aiming for accuracy. So I'm sort of just establishing where that's going to go, and I can see the ear would go back behind it almost. So I'll have to change that. But at this stage, I don't have any detail, really. I don't really have detail that I can't, just redo. And that's the thing. You don't want to get bogged down with too much detail before you've got it all worked out. These ears, they're very small to see here, and this is why I need another camera. But the opening is there. Let me try to show you real close here. There's an opening. Let's see if I can get there. And you want to kind of create that feeling of the ear coming down and around. And I might have to get close under my lamp to really do this, but I wanted to sort of show you can approximate it with your tool like that, just to get started. Just roll the clay around on your finger. Wonderful thing about the forgiving nature of the clay is that you just redo it. I have a lot of hot clay too. I haven't even gotten into today because I was going to show that. My alarm's going off, but just before I finish that, let me show you what I would do with the Sculpey. So I would take some Sculpey here, Sculpey clay, right here. And let me move this over because I want you to see what I'm doing. And I would just go like that, roll it. Because this gives you sort of even magic sculpt. Oh, two-part epoxy. Yeah, see, that's the thing though. I'm not sure. That's hardcore. I don't know about epoxy. I mean, if you were to feel how strong that is, you would be shocked. And all you have to do is do like Sculpey clay and just, as you're going to see what I'm going to do, just lie down. I was checking to make sure you can see. Lie your roll of clay down. I'm going to partition it there because I'll have two. And just embed. I'm just going to embed the wire into it like so. Oops, I should have put it on a piece of parchment, but that's okay. If you work on parchment, then you want to bake this stuff right on parchment. It's very easy. And then just pinch it around. Can you see what I'm doing? Pinching it right around. And oh, and then it brushes beautifully with alcohol. Just plain rubbing alcohol. So, all right, now you've got, and what, when I show you next, I hope I'll have this done. And if I put any tributaries to it, I may bake this piece first and I'll smooth it out. And say it's rough in the beginning, go ahead and bake it and then add to it. Put alcohol on it and add to it and then brush it. And you can get a very strong little piece like that. Now I'm going to think about how am I going to mold this piece because I'm going to want to mold it. So I'll be careful not to make the horns going this way and that way and this. I'm going to strategically do it so that, oops, right here. Okay, so when I bake that and then I can put the tributaries on, I'll make sure they come off so that when I lay this piece down, I can make a rubber mold on it. So I can reproduce it in resin. And resin, it can be like the epoxy, very strong, but that would be like a final product. That would be the finished, and I would create my clay. I would mold that, and I'd create those holes so that we can then attach the resin, and I would probably put metal in with the resin, so it's sort of like the bronzed resin. So there's all kinds of ways you can do it, but what I'm looking for is if I do reproductions other than bronze, I want to make sure the materials have a good feel and a permanence about them. So you don't want stuff breaking all over the place. I mean, porcelain was so breakable, is so breakable, but at least it had um, the material had value, intrinsic value by itself. So anyway, there's part one, almost. So I'll just go ahead and bake this and then smooth it and add to it, but in a way that it would come out of a mold. And then do the other one, the other piece. I already lost oh, here it is. So I'll do the same thing and they'll be very, very strong. So anyway, that's where I am right now. In the end, this ought to look really cool. And I'm not done with the other projects, no, but I got excited about this. And so I'm sticking with it right now until I get it to look like something really cool. And then one of the other sculptures, and I hope to get to this week, is the person, the Sami reindeer herder that's driving this sled with their incredible clothing that they wear. It's so colorful, and then deer skins mixed with this colorful golden laid clothing. It's so cool. And to think, we have to have Santa all the time. Well, it's fun to have something that's actually educational, but really cool looking. So I'll say goodbye and thanks for staying on extra long. And I'll see you on, is it Monday? I'm losing track. I'll see you on Wednesday. Okay, thank you. See you later. Bye-bye.